2NURFM, a broadcast service of the University of Newcastle.
And just having a chat to Professor Frank Millward, Head of School of the School of Creative Arts at the University of Newcastle, and we're saying that, touching wood, that mosquitoes haven't been as bad this year.
No, I've been left alone so far, so that's a very good sign.
Are you a mosquito magnet, or do you...
No, they don't like me at all, as opposed to my partner, who they just seem to love.
It's a love or hate relationship with the mosquitoes, isn't it? Hey, look, there's always some great things happening, not only at the University of Newcastle, but also the Conservatorium, Layman Street in Newcastle. And we've got a couple of wonderful public lectures coming up. This is an amazing title, Creative Industries, Impact, Translation and Engagement. What can we expect from that?
Well, this is a lecture by Malcolm Gillies, Professor Malcolm Gillies, a recently retired Vice-Chancellor of 2 London universities, who has had a great relationship in Australia as the Australian Academy of Humanities, as well as with ANU and Queensland University. He's a well-known Australian who actually went to work in London. He's coming back to visit, and he's giving these 2 lectures. The first one, as you described, we can expect an unpacking of the creative industries and how they came about, and what their global and Australian prospects are in meeting student aspirations, research benchmarks, industry needs and the cultural expectations. A kind of fill in about what the creative industries are about. It's been a bit of an item that's been in question for some time. People keep saying, yeah, well, what are the creative industries? So he's here to lay down a foundational talk about that. And more exciting still, the next day, he is going to do a lecture, public lecture, about Percy Grainger as innovator. And Malcolm Gillies is a fine researcher in the area of Bartok. He's written a number of books about Bartok, but he's also written a number of books about Percy Grainger. Percy Grainger is a rather colourful, interesting composer, our most famous composer and pianist, of course.
Do you think a lot of people might not actually know the name? They hear the name, that they may not associate Percy Grainger as being an Australian, more so of someone from overseas?
Well, Percy Grainger ironically wrote the tune for an English country garden, in an English country garden. So he was he's famous as a sort of pop writer, from the beginning of the 20th century rather. So it's an interesting kind of position that he played in as much as he was a traditional artist of performer of Liszt and Elgar and all these kinds of composers, as well as composed himself, and was successful at that. But he was really very well known as a virtuoso piano player.
How is he remembered globally?
Well, he's remembered globally through this sort of, eccentricity of the nature of his engagement. For example, he used to visit Elgar, and Elgar had a house that was basically had a doorway at the front and a doorway at the back that had a hallway that led from back to front. He used to throw a ball over the roof of the house, run through that doorway and see if he could catch it on the other side at the back of the house. So he'd throw it from the front of the house over the house and run through and see. And that was a game that he's a sort of he's a truly
eclectic,
amazing kind of, and also well known for his idiosyncrasies in relation to his sexuality, and that's a very interesting and well documented in the museum dedicated to Percy Grainger at the Conservatorium in Melbourne.
Okay, fantastic. So these are 2 wonderful lectures coming up. You've got the dates for us again? The
dates are for the creative industries, Monday the 21st of March, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. There'll be a little reception afterwards. And similarly, the second one for Percy Grainger is Tuesday the 22nd of March, the next day, 10:30 to 12, and all are invited. Please come along.
Expanding the mind, that would be wonderful to attend. Thank you very much, Professor Frank Millward. He is the Head of School of Creative Arts at the University of Newcastle.